Hey, gang. Welcome back to Oracle Rose Healing, where healing becomes tarot and tarot becomes healing and healing becomes you. I'm so glad that we are back in the new year here. Um, I'm glad I'm back. I actually have went through some ascensions and receiving my downloads and also more more intuitive insight into my healing gifts and what have you. And so now I'm back to help with the healing. So I'm glad you guys are here. Over the holidays, some of us have probably dealt with what we're going to talk about today and how to deal with it loneliness. As I was listening to collective readings, a lot of that was coming out in readings and about, Mercury retrogrades, all the love portals opening, and all of that good stuff. There was a good many of us who didn't have partake in any of that. We were just part of the ascension here. A lot of us going through our empathic healing journey, and a lot of us are doing that in solitude. And so some of us may have even just got through the holidays in loneliness as well. So that's how this download came in a free write, and the ancestors have and the spirit guides have guided me here to do this guided reading for us today on loneliness. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and light some Palo Santos here. I had cleared out the space, but we're going to get it cleared. We're going to use a couple of decks today, and I hope everybody is doing well. So this one is about, asking about the loneliness. Have you ever felt lonely even when you're like surrounded by people? Like no one truly sees you, hear you, or understands the depth of your heart. You could be in a room full of people and not even feeling like it. But what if your loneliness is in the emptiness? It's just like a sacred pause where your soul is calling you back to itself. That's one of the things I learned during this journey and getting to this here reading. So we're gonna talk about it. So if you've been feeling alone and disconnected, or even unseen, this reading it may be the conversation your soul has been waiting for you to have. A lot of times you got to reconcile to yourself before you start going to talk to everybody else about how you feel. You got to know yourself. Okay. um so hello, divine collective. This reading is a gentle invitation for you to understand what your loneliness is. It's not something to escape, but it's something to heal through. So loneliness, it can come when you've been strong for too long. That's my problem. And when we've given more than we receive, also my problem. But when spirit is craving authentic connection, you're going to also feel loneliness. So that could be what's going on. So this spread is going to help us to get to that clarity about emotional validation, also, and some practical spiritual insight on what you could be experiencing right now. But I just want to let you guys remember that all readings are general, so grab what resonates and let the rest float away. And these are timeless readings, so which means it found you right on time. It's right on time. But before we get started, we're going to clear the space with a bell. I also have my sound bowl that I had actually got some time ago, a few readings back. And as you know, before we even get started, we always thank the Divine Most High and the ancestors. So if you have your headphones in, just mind the bell because here we go. I give thanks to the Most High Divine Spirit for being here, for surrounding us with healing energy, and for guiding today's messages. And by the grace of the Most High and the Holy Spirit, the space is filled with love, peace, light, and all energies that do not serve our highest good are transmuted into love, healing, and renewing energy. Now let's step into this reading. All right, so we got you seen. I've been shuffling these cards like it ain't nobody's business. So we're just gonna get into this reading so we can get out a opening card. All right. And so I had already come to the questions. The first card is about the true root of loneliness, of your loneliness. Okay. So we're going to ask Spirit, what is the true root of the loneliness? Okay. Loneliness doesn't begin with others, it begins where connection to self was interrupted. So we need to know where that might occur. So we're going to ask Spirit, what is the true root of the loneliness here? All right. Just asking for one card to come out here. This deck. Okay, here we are. Okay, Page of Wands. All right. Now, in your Page of Wands energy, we're talking about maybe you were thinking about where you were curious, your youthful inspiration. So it could have started there. You know, your loneliness may stem from some emotional and spiritual disconnection from your inner self back when you were a child. Okay. And like for a lot of us, that's where it's happening at. You know, it's happening in childhood, it's being carried over to adulthood. That's why we're here. We're constantly hearing about the collective readings and, you know, all that other energy that's floating out there that's being very south node. And we're learning skills here how to transmute that energy and how to get through it. Okay. You could have exes who have been, you know, that you don't want to get back with, who could be sending out, you know, energy of loneliness toward you, being in your energy or pulling on your energy. However, you can heal yourself through this. Okay. One of the healing techniques that I've learned is healing through self present reset. So you got to have a self presence where you reset. It's like a reset button. You place one hand on your chest and you say, I am here with myself now, and you repeat that until your body softens. Okay, because a lot of times we got to remember we come into this world by ourselves, and being by ourselves don't truly mean that we're alone. You know what I mean? We got ancestors, spirit guides, and everything working with us. So, and as you can tell right here, it's telling us that with this card to maintain being exploring, you know, and being explosive in our creativity so we can get through this feeling. All right. So now, the emotional wound beneath this feeling was the next question that had come out. So I'm going to ask Barry for a card on that. This is the original wound of loneliness. This is where it's pointing toward. So, you know, a lot of times you sitting around just feeling this thinking that it has something to do with an ex or a relationship or nothing like that. But no, a lot of times what you're feeling on the surface goes deeper. It goes way deeper than the little mundane things that you're going through day to day. And it definitely doesn't have anything to do with a shadow that is outside of you. If you're thinking that, then that's going to perpetuate and have you manifest in the same situations over and over again. So we're going to ask Spirit where the emotional wound beneath this feeling came from, Spirit. And Spirit says it came from Eight of Pentacles in reverse energy. All right. And so when I'm thinking of Eight of Pentacles, I'm actually thinking of in reverse. I'm thinking that maybe like it's feeling you know, failing in ambition somewhere. You know, maybe you wasn't supporting where you were feeling ambitious. I know in my own energy, when I was growing up as a child, I used to have that childlike curiosity, and I would go to my the people in my family around me who are already in this like, you know, scarcity, you know, lack energy, and I'm trying to, you know, explore and be, you know, just my God given self. And as a child, I'm bringing things up like saying, I remember one time saying how I noticed how my mother was having issues about, you know, being on welfare, you know, and I had said to her, I think I was about 8 or 9 years old, you know, and I said to her, I said, you know, oh, mom, you know, when I get older, I'm never going to be on the welfare. And instead of for my mom, you know, saying, well, you know, that's a good idea, baby, or whatever, she took it as a, you know, like a attack from a child. And I don't even want to repeat what she called me, but it reminds, it sound, believe me, it's not funny, but it's one of my first childhood wounds that I remember and recall right now in this reading is that, you know, um, it was a word that rhymes with witch. Okay. And so looking at this card is telling me you know, you might have minimized the wound just to survive. I know I had over time, you know, but it still seeks to be acknowledged. You know, me speaking it out right now in this reading is actually acknowledging it, you know. And you know, with Ayana coming back online with, you know, the whole own and what have you, and you know, Ayana Van Zandt, she's always said one of my favorite people. You can't heal what you don't speak, what you don't speak. So you got to do a wound validation practice. Okay, you have to say aloud what I felt mattered, and I didn't imagine it. You know, my mother had me feeling like I had did something to her just by, you know, trying to come with a resolution. I was never encouraged to look outside of the pessimism in which I grew up in. And so every time I would be optimistic, I would have to keep that to myself, which is kind of crazy for a child to deal with. But of course, it creates those feelings of loneliness when I couldn't even express what I was actually imagining and feeling good about. Now we're here. We're going to validate whatever we feel. It doesn't matter who. F those people. You know what I mean? So the next card is, you got to recognize where the loneliness and how it's showing up in life. And so I'm asking spirit, to show us, this is how loneliness expresses itself in the behavior, in your behavior. You may not even recognize it. And, healing is all about awareness. And so we're going to ask spirit, how's this loneliness showing up in life for the collective. And let's just see what we can get out here. So spirit says it's coming in as a Queen of Pentacles in reverse. Okay. So Queen of Pentacles in reverse is energy is like being dependent on other people. Being dependent on other people to feel complete or feel like you can celebrate or what have you. Over the holiday, I did have friends come, stay with me, which was great. However, they were not exactly with me on the actual holiday. I don't really celebrate holidays now that I have grown children, but I do have grandchildren. So, for them, I'll play into the little matrix game. However, on the day of Christmas or what have you, um, I might have thought about, I'm by myself, but I didn't feel alone. I felt, complete, you know. However, with this card coming out in reverse, it could be, it could mean that you might be, feeling lonely because you can't over socialize. You might, you know, people please to avoid being in solitude. You'll go around people just being an option, or even just you don't want to feel alone with yourself. You don't even want to be alone in your own energy, but you want others to like want to be around you. You're going to attract what you are, you know. So basically, this here is like you got to be awareness. You got to be aware what your behavior is creating when you are feeling lonely and how it's showing up in your life. Okay, and so one of the healing techniques is like a behavior awareness check-in. You know, you got to ask yourself, how am I avoiding myself right now? No judgment. All right, only noticing. You're just gonna notice what you do in those moments. A lot of times there's people around you who notice. That's how they're able to take advantage of you or even manipulate you because they can see the loneliness on you, and you're expressing it, or expressing it or assuming that energy, but you're not even aware of it. You're going to have to make sure you're aware of it. Okay. So you're going to have to know which parts of you are asking for attention. So we're going to ask spirit, what parts of collective is asking for attention when this type of behavior is coming out? All right. Now, this is the part of you that was set aside to survive when you feel lonely. So we're going to ask spirit, we're going to ask spirit, I'm sorry, that the next card is what the loneliness is teaching us. Okay, then the card after that is the question about the part of asking for attention. So it's what the loneliness is teaching us. Okay, because loneliness appears when a lesson of self-union is ready, and I know that's what it was for me. Like divine wanted me to come with my wheel ready. That's too many. And so that's when I was able to reconcile the loneliness in me and transmute the energy. So, what loneliness is teaching you, collective? We want to know. So, spirit, what loneliness is teaching the collective? Please help us out. All right. And we have a Six of Wands. Okay. So, Six of Wands in this energy is telling us that, you know, loneliness is teaching us about rewards, being successful in our own energy. You know what I mean? It could be about feeling victorious in our own energy, knowing that we are complete and whole. All right. With this coming out like this in an upright collective, this is letting me know that you are learning emotional self companionship. You're getting your own inner stability going on. And that's what you're going to need, because nothing outside of you is ever going to heal you. It's always about inner. It starts from the inside and then it expresses to the outside, and it shows up in the 3D. It doesn't just show up in the 3D and somehow jump into you. Okay. It could, but then it's going to be South Node energy. It's not going to be you standing in your power. Okay. And so, in order to stand in your power, you're going to need to know what parts of you are asking for attention. So, that's that next question that was coming out. What parts of you set aside to survive? So, you got to be aware. It's all about awareness. It's about what it's teaching you. And then now we got to know what parts need to be are attended to, so we can know how to deal with it. Okay. And we're just talking about inner energy. So spirit, help us out here. Can we get a card on that? All right. The parts that's asking for attention. Oh, all right. That's too many. Going back in here. Fell on my lap. This was the deck. Okay. I got two. I'm going to take this one out here. All right, so this is actually a Five of Pentacles in reverse. Okay, so a Five of Pentacles in reverse is telling me that Five of Pentacles in reverse is telling me that, maybe we were talking about new employment or clarity or whatever. Clarity is asking. This was the part that was set aside, the clarity, or maybe with these pentacles, because pentacles is all about money, but we're talking about a Five of Pentacles in reverse. So, any money gained or whatever it is, whatever it's is about this. What it's telling me is that this is the part that stayed silent or independent to avoid rejection. And this works for me too, because every time I was able to get a new opportunity or get more money than the people around me who were in a lack scarcity mindset, I kept it to myself. I kept all my wins to myself, because no matter what type of W I created for myself, I had to celebrate it in loneliness, and I set that aside to survive, not to have people sending me evil eye, doing spell work on me, saying that I did heinous things when I was working in honesty with my head down. I had my own family hating on me. You know what I mean? And so what this card is telling us is that this is the part that learn to stay silent or independent to avoid rejection, you know. But what I've done to heal myself, and I'm going to help you guys out with sharing it with you, I started these inner dialogue exercises. Like, I write one sentence that begins with, what I wish someone had noticed about me was, okay. Now, when you don't seek outside validation, it doesn't really matter. But when you know what your intentions are, you ask that question. What I wish someone had noticed about me was. And what I had wished someone noticed about me was that I wasn't asking them for a DAM thing. You know what I'm saying? And my independence, that I was reliable, that I was resilient, you know. But I had to notice it about myself. Okay. So that's how I've got led to the next question in this healing about, um, asking ourselves, how to reconnect with ourselves before we expect for others to care about our loneliness. All right. And so the next card out is how to reconnect with yourself collective, because connection begins with us internally before we can appears externally with others outside of us. So we got to be connected on the inside in order for us to be connected on the outside. Okay. So we're going to ask spirit how to reconnect with ourselves first. Okay. So, and collective want to know how can they reconnect with themselves as well. So let's just see here. How can we do it? Let's see here. I don't know what's going on. Give me a second here. I had too many come out. They're coming in the deck. That is too many. We just want this one card. Sometimes with these guided readings, there it goes. it can get there. But okay, so here we got a seven of wands. All right. And so the question was how to reconnect with yourself. All right. And so you got to challenge yourself. You got to gain that strength. You got to have faith. You got to stand your ground. That's what I'm learning. And this is what this card represents. You know what I'm saying? Standing your ground. You know what I'm saying? Even when it comes to loneliness, because it says here, we already know if you embody this, you slow down and you start listening inward, you're going to stand your ground. Okay. And that's how you're going to reconnect. You know, you're going to have to ask yourself when you're experiencing any of these previous energies and it was putting you in this loneliness energy, what you're going to do. You're not going to go to people pleasing. You're going to reconnect with self first, because that's what happens. That's what you need to do. One of the things I do is that breathing technique where you do that body anchoring breath. You kind of inhale deeply in your belly and then you exhale slowly through the mouth. I kind of repeat that like 5 times. It brings me back to my center. It helps me to ground. It makes my energy stop feeling all fragmented and sporadic, or my mood start dipping. It makes me remember, you know. And healing is all about remembering and resonance. Okay. All right. So now, once I get there, I try to open up to the divine, to a vertical connection. Okay. And so I want to, because I got to remember, it's all about remembering and resonance. So loneliness kind of eases up on me when my soul remember how I'm spiritually accompanied. I'm spiritually connected. I call out to the ancestors all the time. I always thank them and honor and respect them, and also spirit guides and the Most High Divine. And so I had in this loneliness, you got to remember you were never alone, not in birth, not in death. And you just never alone. Energy never dies. So, and as we get better in dealing with it in this dense 3D third dimension, um, we get better about managing our own energy. Okay. All right. So we're going to ask how to open to the divine, how to open our vertical connection divine, how to do that. Give us some insight, ancestor spirit guides. Okay. And the five of wands, well, five of wands upright came out. Okay. And so teamwork, leveling up. You might have to be pushed by others to succeed. You gotta challenge yourself. You know what I'm saying? You gotta even challenge yourself when you're conflicted about feeling lonely. Okay. And so that's what that means here. You have to use that energy, all your strength within, to open up to the divine. Okay. And what this means, you can do it through prayer. You can do it through meditation. I do it through intuitive dialogue. I have like this voice journaling app that I download off the app store. And, and it helps me to just, stand straight, align, and speak from my soul, and it helps me to build spiritual trust. And so that's going to help you get through loneliness as well. Okay. So you can do what is, I call it a divine companion invocation. Okay. I say to myself, I open myself to the divine companionship, and then I just sit and I just receive it quietly. But I know I'm receiving it. Okay. I don't feel alone though. All right. And you have to know. Remember, I said it's about resonance and remembrance. And hopefully, this message is resonating with you, because that's what it's all about. It's the belief. Okay. And so we need to know um, what's lying underneath, what subconscious belief is sustaining this loneliness feeling. So we're going to ask Spirit about it. Tell us, Spirit, what belief is sustaining the loneliness? Help us out with a card here. It's a King of Cups that came out. It jumped out the deck. And it came out kind of to the side, as you can see. All right. And that King of Cups is telling me that, um, it might be a paternal energy that has us thinking about loneliness. I remember my grandfather used to tell me, "Oh, life is not fair," you know. But one thing I've learned on my spiritual journey, that life may not be fair, but life will balance, which means at some point there will be fairness. Okay. And so it coming out in this is, you might have this feeling here that you don't belong, or you might be hard to love, or you might be feel unchosen, but no, you're here. You've been divinely guided here to be reminded that none of that is true. And this belief, you know you got to replace it. You got to replace anything that is not good. You have to remember that the most high is good, and everything that is good is the most high, and everything that may be the polar opposite has the potential to be balanced. Okay, so one of the things I do is use that belief replacement. Okay, and I always reframe it with saying, I belong where I'm aligned. Okay, and I'm aligned with the Most High. And so I belong in that energy. I belong in that high level. Okay, and you do too, collective. You do too. That's why you're here. You're tired of feeling like you're by yourself when you're not really by yourself. You know what I mean? And so you got to get out of that energy of thinking that that's really what it is, because it's not. All right. All right. So you need to be able to recognize what a line connection looks like. All right. And a lot of times the techniques that I'm putting out here may seem very simple, very small, but you would not realize the impact of consistency and repetition of doing something when you get into a certain energy, and how it changes you, how it resets your nervous system, how it actually gets you into a newer vibration. You have to be willing to take chances on yourself and invest time and energy in yourself, instead of just letting your energy be fragmented and distracted and pulled all over by external forces. Okay, so you got to get into your healing energy. And so you got to know what a line connection looks like. And so we're going to be asking Spirit, what does a line collection look like? What does the collective need to know, and how to recognize when they are aligned, and what that connection look like? And it could be to your spirit guides, it could be to your ancestors, it could be to the Most High Divine. I always feel my connection to all energies, and so uh, especially the Most High, being aligned and connected. So let's ask Spirit, what does that connection look like? We're going to ask Spirit. Give me 1 second here. Get myself together. All right. All right, here we go. All right, and it's the Ace of Cups in reverse. Now, wouldn't know why we got an Ace of Cups in reverse. However, what this energy means is endings. What it looks like when you're aligned, you're going to feel an ending to feeling lonely. Okay, and that's what this energy is telling me. Because you see how this hand is here? Usually in the upright, that's you being supported by the divine. All right. However, once you are connected and aligned, that loneliness is not gonna, you're gonna release all that shallow and misaligned connection to make space. All right. You're gonna remember, you're gonna be like, oh no, I recognize these energies coming on me, and I don't resonate with that. That's not me. All right. One of the things I do is a healing technique that's called the connection discernment question. And all you got to do is ask yourself, do I feel safe being myself here? If that answer is yes, you are aligned. If that answer is no, you need to figure out what it is, and get back into alignment. You got to get back on track. Okay. And one of the things is that once you are on track, okay, and you know what it is, you'll know what your connection is to your soul and what it's actually calling in. Okay. You'll know what it is. All right. And then after that, you'll know what a healed expression of loneliness and what that is, and what kind of energy that's assumed in. And that was the last question that came out in the tarot reading. All right. And so we're going to ask Spirit about that. Once we've gotten through and we know what a aligned connection look like, then we should be able to recognize what a healed expression of loneliness looks like. Okay. Once you've integrated that shadow of feeling lonely and knowing how to move throughout this earth, then you will know that you are able to, confirmation there, you will know what it looks like. Okay. And so we're going to ask Spirit to just give us some insight on what that is and what that might look like. Okay, Spirit. So we're going to ask, shuffling, 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 shuffling. Let's see. All right. That's too many. It's going back in. Jumped on my chest, too. All right. Let's get one out of here. Spirit. What does that aligned, healed expression of loneliness look like? Okay. And I actually got too many out. These cards, I love the color. I love the print of them. I love the feel of them. However, they're the type of cards that you got to powder. And so before you knock them down. And so this is what it's going to look like. Okay. So a healed expression of loneliness may be King of Pentacles energy in reverse. Okay. Uh, is I would say that you would know. I'm not going to say it's going to look like this. What you're going to know is that it's not wasteful, because that's usually what this appears as. However, looking at it like this, the healing is still unfolding. So you got to trust the process. So you got to make sure that when you start out, it may feel like nothing's changing right away and you might feel like it's wasteful, but nothing you invest in yourself towards your healing is ever wasteful. Okay. What's wasteful is not even focusing on your healing and just allowing yourself to feel energies that are lower vibrations that actually take away from your ability to manifest and also to heal yourself. Okay. So you don't want to do that. All right. Um, I did pull out some cards from another deck here. This one is from this deck here called the Career and Life Oracle deck. And so I'm going to get a few cards out of there for Spirit. I had already did a pre-shuffle. These cards are better. Shouldn't be filling out anything weird here. But basically here, talking about loneliness. The first card came out that says wealth. You are working towards real wealth and prosperity in your life. Keep investing in yourself and look into long-term career planning. Okay. When loneliness come over you, invest in yourself. Where you invest in yourself to pull your energy up in vibration, you're going to start getting that inspired action. You're going to start getting those downloads on clarity and ideas and all these other things. You just have to refocus, because whatever you put your energy on is what's going to grow. So if you sit around in a pity of woe is me, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get that. All right. What else came out here is make it work. You have all the tools you need to succeed, but you have to put in the effort. I just said that. I can't make it up. Spirit said you excel at working with your hands and fixing problems. Figure it out. Work with what you got. Collective, we all have a connection to the divine. We all have connections to our spirit guides and our ancestors. We just have to believe and receive, get into receptive mode, stop resisting. All right. And then since these jumped out, I'm going to take them and we're going to go on and incorporate them here. Offerings. You will be offered a new position or investment opportunity. Think about it, research it carefully before accepting it. Okay, yeah. Don't just start moving around when offers come to you. It could be an offer for a relation, any kind of relationship. It says career here, but we're doing career in life. This could actually be a relationship coming in, and never out of boredom or loneliness. Don't claim that energy. Always make your decisions to do something from clarity. Okay. And therefore the offerings you'll be able to discern. And then the last card that came out was a new life. You may get a fresh start or be called to bring a new perspective to your old job, or you may also get a tempting job offer or a new place. Now I just thought about that in the thing of doing, talking about loneliness. Think about it, leaving your old ways, the old ways you were repeating and living in the energy of loneliness behind, because now you have healed yourself. You're incorporating the techniques we talked about. You're coming back to this video and you're looking at things, and taking notes, and figuring it out and integrating. All right. Just remember, I'm here to help you. Loneliness is not about absence. It's about a doorway that's deeper to a deeper union. And it doesn't have nothing to do with people. Okay. It has to do with your soul. Because when your soul feels accompanied with and connected, all right, your connections arrive without you chasing them. You'll never feel lonely. Okay. And so you got to remember that in this energy. And you got to remember what you do in a lonely South Node energy. Everything that follows that energy that goes unchecked and unaware, all actions that follow that had a potential to fail and also to circumvent your manifestations. So you don't want that to happen. It's all about awareness, okay? All right. So I want to thank you guys for coming over to my channel today and learning a new skill. Let me know what helped you today. I would like to hear that. Please get down in the comments and please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and share the video so more souls can find us. The more healed people that you run into, the less problems you're going to have. So make sure you share that video. And thank you for being here. And remember, keep walking in your light.